I didn't ring in with the sound bowls, but I was gifted some cool stuff. And I do think that there's some powerful ways to open the circle and cleanse some energy in sound in general. So, thank you to the lovely soul who gifted me that. It worked very well with my indigo rattle. Um, Not a full moon, but Mercury is relieving us from its retrograde. And I do think that there are some interesting energies at play, and some intense feelings. And so, what better time and place to check in? Please forgive the messy hair; it's full of my secrets. Um, but so in reflecting on the days and planets' energies and the witnessing of sounds at play, just outside my door, I can't help but ponder all the stories that we tell our mind and whether or not that traps us in time. Um, have you, have I, have we defeated ourselves before the fight's even begun? Um, and I think that maybe has been a theme for a lot of people in disbelief in one way or another. Um, Gathering new information as they do. Um, with all of the energies, especially with the last moon in Aries in our head, in our minds, I think uh, as that retrograde relieves and moves forward, we will communicate that energy with truth or projection. Um, we'll move in such a way so as to honor the lessons we've learned or not. Um, it speaks to me maybe more uh, mirrored projections over mutual planes or mutual truths, um, because that can play both ways. But there's types of symmetry in this, and perhaps an inverted symmetry. Uh, like they say, the ways in which we judge are often the ways that we're internally judging ourselves, and it has very little to do with that person. But in fact, the metrics with which we judge ourselves. Um, and it just makes me think like metrics as these bars in this torture table. Um, Very Five of Swords, I want to say. Um, anyway, I do think Mercury, Pluto, Saturn, and all these Pisces energies are very contrasting for a reason, and I feel they are very geared to carry us forward into conscious dreaming or sleepless sleep, very delta wave, very yogic sleep kind of things, but very even in in dreaming in the way that it's used to impact learning or realities, those ways in which the imagination becomes believable. Um, I do think that Jupiter and Uranus are also very indecisive and stubborn to change kind of energies, thus, the non believers shunning belief, um, or unable to make up their minds about it, or unable to define where they stand in it. We are given many choices, but I think the good truth is to um, make your own. But it's just me. Um, let's see. I think Mars and Cancer, I love oftentimes, but I think at this point feels quite flaccid, um, in the ways that, I mean, very literally for the word popping, um, but the ways in which our mind distracts us from the things that we want, the ways in which the mind gets in the way of ecstasy or orgasm or pleasure or fear of many things. This is why I believe they call it the little death. Um, some do, at least. Um, I do think all of this also lends itself to these ideas of relief, and that it does not, in fact, come from an external source. Uh, in the same ways that, again, this flaccid Mars in Cancer, or maybe seeking release in ways that are ultimately proving to be unfulfilling. Maybe, again, with these, Aries projection concepts, the ways in which we project our hurt and abuse, thinking that it will satiate, and realizing that it perpetuates the cycle. um, or the ways in which that we will turn to indulgence in one substance or another, and then find that it is ultimately also not rewarding, or even in good spirits, maybe seeking relief in a medicated substance and a corporatization of plant medicine. I don't know why I'm dancing around that. Um, Seeking relief only to find that it is not, in fact, on the other side, but where you started. Um, I think this is also what leads to, I mean, what they say leads to bad trips, bad mood. Don't do A, B, and C when you're already in a negative state. It's not a place of avoidance, very far from, in fact, um, which leads to points of unresolved. Are we lost in ourselves? Are we finding ourselves? Um, and what that leads to, I think, oftentimes purpose, even finding purpose, is disguised as a career path, which then morphs into identity. And that's not quite it either, because who would we be if that was all gone? You would still be your source energy. And so, are we lost or are we found? We're leading to resolve is satisfying or frightening. And I think that comes with a lot of faith in self truth, honoring the self. Om Namah Shivaya. Um, I think Jupiter is a really bold energy, but Gemini requires listening, and Jupiter is a speaker, is a dictator. Um, so it continues to be an interesting relationship or resolve, where it may also be because Gemini becomes a greater teacher in its observance and listening, and Jupiter as well. Better teacher, oscillating. Um, Oscillating, which is your current, is your aura, is your frequency, is beyond the need for a purpose or an identity or a job or what have you, in which ways we apply it to ourselves as a mask. Um, Even the teacher must listen in these. Even the human must listen to hear the cries of that which we've decided is less than, be it animals or ghosts or plants or strangers, neighbors. The haunt is the hurt. The hurt is so haunting if we ignore it. And that's also conversations of speciesism and the ways in which we neglect to understand intelligence in many forms. Um, I love finding out how much better than humans animals often are. Um, and I often joke that I have less boundaries with the spirit world than I do with the human world for exactly that reason. So, how do we find peace, like freedom from fear or from fear of death? Uh, I think perhaps it comes in a breath and the silent moments in between exulting exhalation, much like speech or evocation, which is a very Mercury, Aries, direct kind of move. So good things on the horizon. It'll retrograde again in July. Uh, so careful not to put your foot in your mouth, which is, I think, why the depths of these Pisces energies are such a powerful preemptive for this movement forward. So, with that being said, I've decided we'll pull some cards and see if there's anything that I have not said that the stars can imbue. What say you? What's in a name? What's in a word? What's in a bird? Also, hi, hello. Thank you for joining me. Woo! True FaceTime, I don't think you count. Exciting. Exciting. Many doors are revolving. Ooh. Okay. You don't have to open yourself up to anything. I do. You can open yourself to you. In which case, the only thing I really ask is an open mind and an erect spine. And we'll take a couple of breaths together, much like we are hanging out, much like we're in the same space-time room. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Ooh, interesting, fun, funny, quirky, weird. I feel like reflexes will be a really good indication of that which needs to be uh, healed. And let the focus be healing, not on the reflex or the impulse in and of itself, because the focus will exacerbate the reflex. It's like turning a twitch into a tremor. But if you can focus the energy on what that underlying cause is, or what any underlying similarities and variables is, then that will lead to other truths. For instance, I used to wake up swinging when people would wake me up, and since have dealt with a lot of traumas attached to that. So now I wake up quite peacefully, and don't sleep like I'm dead like I used to. But that is perhaps because the version of me that needed that has already left more time and space for the rest of us. Ooh, ooh. Sorry, I know there's a microphone and that's probably really loud. Okay. 8446. I feel like that's like jumping in different chords. But also the ways in which we deconstruct for smaller steps, even that which we know. Even that which we know, because things work more fluidly when they work in ways and outways. We have a broader perspective when we understand that most connectivities are two-way data stream, or a two-way sort of data matrix. If you can communicate to, you can receive messages from. And if you can build it, you can tear it down. Even when I started other things, I guess like originally rope work stuff, I learned a lot in untying, and then I was able to build on that because I deconstructed this thing. So we have this Eight of Wands, creative energy, this Four of Diamonds, this Four of Hearts. So it's the creative reality and big picture that is weaved together of the literal elements of our world, in our communicative relative elements of our world, in mutual planes, in the ways in which that we see and agree to believe, create geometric truths. But this Four of Hearts is also the ways in which we mirror and see reflections of our own heart and see reflections of our own intentions or personalities in the world, and the ways in which those meld together. If you feel like you're surrounded by a-holes, perhaps there's a little bit of a-hole in you. um, and perhaps there's also, in general, a bigger picture. I feel like anytime I have felt that, I step back and understand that these are also um, people navigating healing with the best information that they have, which is often very little and often very inaccessible, without dependency. And that changes the game. That changes perspective. Um, my willingness in interacting in that situation, it comes from a very different place then. Um, and these are the ways that we engage with our reality, right? So big picture, da 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 da, big puzzle, take it apart. What are the frame pieces? What are your favorite pieces, and where do they go? How does that help you build the picture? And very literally, even in building puzzles, what's your method? Like, what's your favorite? Because everybody's kind of got like, oh, well, this helps it be easy, but these are my favorite pieces to do. Depending on the picture or the puzzle, maybe there's a specific part of it you want to get done first. And it's not necessarily because it's easy. Usually it's because it's what you really enjoy. And oftentimes that relates to too many things in our lives and the ways in which we spend energy. Um, the Six of Diamonds, speaking of spending energy, uh, I feel like it is a perfect balance of reciprocity, transactional trust. I don't like transaction in the idea of relationships, but perhaps that's there because that is how most people navigate them or understand them. Um, but it's the assumption of return for me in transaction, where the Six of Diamonds wouldn't even need that because sixes are perfection, sixes are balance, sixes are enough, sixes are structure, and um, I feel like even sacred structure, the places in which people go when they feel like they have nothing. Um, and sometimes that's home. Sometimes that's your bed. Sometimes that's your bathroom, which I think are the two most important parts of your house, your bedroom and your bathroom, because you spend a lot of time in there. So it ought to feel good. And maybe even that is just the little ways in which we can give back to ourselves rather than feel in lack and feel, I guess, wealthy in trying times. Um, which, considering economy's impact uh, and historical data lending itself to where that may lead, um, there's something that I've read is when you have bread, you have wealth. When you have flour and water, you have wealth. Um, Very minor things to have in the cupboard, but something that can continually grow and continually give back. And even if you have bread, you have something to offer your neighbor, you have something to offer your loved ones, you have something to sustain your youth, your children, your vitality, even however that applies to you. Um, Gosh, even as I'm doing that, funny. Because we have creative energy here, and we also have very grounding energy. I'm breathing through my nose, and I'm breathing very rapidly. I do often find that gives me a lot of energy. That helps me refocus if I feel distracted, if I feel tired, even just kind of like pumps me back up. There's a lot of interesting research about nasal breathing in general, on longevity of life and the ways in which the mucosa and cellular memory in that, or even in the nose hairs, um, regulate temperature and provide more efficient nitrous oxide into the bloodstream. Um, Yada yada yada, lots of things. I have a whole other rambling class on it that you should fuck with, fuck around and find out about. Um, and so when we feel, again, have you defeated yourself before the fight's even begun? When we feel defeated, what do we turn to? And a lot of times, maybe that's not even that I'm feeling defeated, just that I'm feeling like I need replete. Like there's replenishment, there's room for replenishment. And so I do that before there's even a depletion to be had. Um, and that's not to say work yourself into the ground, that's to say know your limits. And breathing through the nose, very grounding in the body, brings a lot of awareness to the rhythm of your heart, to the way that your skin feels, to your levels of comfort in whatever mode or setting that you're in. Um, I think we often do not realize that we are not breathing through our nose. And we are, I think, the only species that does that. I mean, dogs pant, but there's a reason for it. There's a very biological, biomechanical reason for it. Um, and we're doing that more often. So we're expelling a lot of energy and temperature and what have you in the same way, without need or necessity, which is ultimately causing our own depletion too. So consider that. I mean, even when we were just breathing, if you breathed with me a moment ago, perhaps now you're realizing that that was maybe not how you breathe naturally, or how you breathe in default mode. I won't say naturally because naturally your body wants to breathe through its nose and from your diaphragm. We just program it in different ways. The default mode networks, which is very Jupiter and Uranus, 100%. Um, and again, all of that Pisces energy lending itself to a bigger perspective, dreaming, perhaps. Or dreaming, for instance, is beyond and in between the default mode network, beyond the simulation, and a current all its own. Yeah, it's like working on a perfect you. And perfection is not a thing, but your familiarity with is ideal. And I say that in many modalities too. Perfection is not real, but your familiarity with is the key. Practice does not make perfect; it makes familiar. All right, we'll throw back actual tradish tarot just to bridge and fill this time space with some good vibes, eh? Okay. Okay. Timelines are, I'm just going to say this now. Timelines are very sticky. I feel like all the more reason why small moments, small breaths, and pieces of the puzzle, like smaller pieces of the puzzle, these fours breaking down are important because timelines are very sticky right now. Timelines are sticking together. Emotions are very sticky right now and sticking together. Trauma, that makes me think trauma bonding. That makes me think, even the ways that anxiety will avalanche. The ways in which things compound. Um, oof, brushed my heart for sure. Um, and is definitely that Jupiter Gemini too. Uh, many options were being given, but also they're sticking and carrying with it karma from other things. So let's find out. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. One last deep breath in and exhale. Relief, resolve. Ha ha ha. Oh, I said I was going to do one, but here we are. Um, Five of Pentacles, Knight of Swords, Queen of Wands, Queen of Pentacles. I find the Five of Pentacles funny because what did I say earlier? Five of Swords. And that's very literally mental energy and its manifestation. It is inverted, which is very much, again, where that comes from inside, the ways in which we project our energies. I always say, too, you don't have to physically touch to let somebody know that you're into them. You don't have to physically touch to let somebody know that you're there. You don't have to physically say or do anything for people to feel that energy. And those are like mundane experiences that I'm sure everybody has been able to recognize. Somebody looks at you from across the bar and you can feel them checking you out. Or even just the idea of people, feeling watched, knowing when somebody is watching you. It's a cut in the frequency or direction of the frequency that becomes so apparent. And that absolutely influences the ways in which we move in the world. So are you alchemizing even the shit you touch into gold? Or are you allowing the shit to stain like oil, like slick oil? Which isn't necessarily your fault either. It's a lot of sticky, icky programs very deeply embedded. It's like a computer virus, but you can get rid of it. You can. The Knight of Swords, as I'm touching that, as I'm saying that, you can get rid of it. The Knight of Swords doesn't even need to necessarily move full speed ahead to know that it can cut right through any circumstance. It's confidence and it's readiness, it's preparedness, it's our willingness to dance, it's trusting ourselves and trusting our knowledge very much too. The Queen of Wands creates illumination with that. Is able to take their darkness and make it brighter. Is able to take their darkness and make it a lighthouse. These two energies together also make me think very Hermit energy. So we have like a dissection of what that could look like in smaller parts or in preceding parts, which is, I think, also a really cool foretelling of good things, of right path, should the path be unified, rather than indecision, or compartmentalizing the path. Oftentimes in the same ways we switch industries, um, or change identifying factors about ourselves, but it really does tie into an ultimate truth or an ultimate, weaving perspective or an ultimate, deeper understanding in some way, shape, or form. Uh, Much more in an archaeological digging and unearthing and illuminating rather than finding per se. Um, but rather than creating, even because the energy is always there, even with this Five of Pentacles, it is eyes closed and it's very much behind him. So it's not something that I needed to see to believe, nor is it something that the Queen of Wands will doubt. Um, the Queen of Pentacles, the bottom of the deck, is again this pose, the Six of Diamonds, this perfection, this balance, this nurturing, this full circle, full cycle, this nourishment, this capacity to give back, this capacity to sustain, to continue to be sustainable. And that's very much not just in, plants and all the beauty that's around her, um, but the ways in which the patterns that we create for ourselves are sustainable as well. Um, I remember pre everything shutting down, I was working probably 4 different jobs, sometimes all of them in one day. And I remember being so tired. And I was like, am I sad? Am I depressed? No, bitch, you're exhausted. You need to replete energy. And eventually I did, and I was surprised by how much energy and creativity I did have. And I said to myself that I would never work that much again. Um, Granted, that is what some would call a point of privilege, but I don't come from privilege. I think it's more a point of choice. Um, and so I've been lucky enough to not have to do that again, because I've always found other ways or found ways to fit my life into something that fit better. Sometimes we adjust to the barometric pressures of changing times, and the body must acclimate. And breathing into our body and being aware of its challenges and its spaciousness uh, allows us to better acclimate into those climates as well. Um, and I mean that both literally and absolutely metaphorically, because we are absolutely acclimating to a very different time. To many of them, in fact, as they converge. But we ready. Motherfucking ready. Ain't it? Ain't it? Um, let's see. What else came up? Puzzles, breath, trust, fear. Find a mantra to free you from fear. Get real intense with your breath work. And again, there's stuff all over my YouTube to lend itself to you in those measures. In fact, I'm working on a kosha workbook so we can have more capacity and ability to ask ourselves the right questions. And so that we can be ultimately found and not coerced by the illusion of loss again. Mwah! I'll leave it at that, and I will see you next time. Party on.